morning started like any other day on Kepler Prime, but by noon, everything had changed forever. Ambassador Crix of the Zelani Federation stood in his office watching the news feeds with growing confusion. Every human settlement, every human colony, every human space station across the galaxy had gone silent at exactly the same time that Captain Jake Morrison had been drinking coffee in the diplomatic lounge just 3 hours earlier. He seemed relaxed, almost cheerful, as he chatted with other ambassadors about trade agreements and shipping routes. Nobody noticed anything strange about his behavior. Nobody saw any signs that he knew what was coming. The first reports came from the outer colonies. Human settlements that housed millions of people simply stopped responding to communication attempts. No distress signals, no emergency broadcasts, no calls for help. The cities were just silent. Station Controller Vex tried calling the human embassy on Kepler Prime. The automated system answered with a polite message, saying all human diplomatic staff were unavailable. When Vex sent security to check the embassy building, they found it empty but perfectly clean. Every desk was organized, every computer was shut down properly, and every door was locked from the inside. The security footage showed Jake Morrison walking through the embassy halls one final time. He moved slowly, almost sadly, checking each room before heading to the transport bay. He carried only a small travel bag and wore his regular clothes. At the transport bay, he paused and looked back at the embassy building for a long moment. Before boarding the last human shuttle dot, when Controller Vex reviewed the footage later, he remembered asking Morrison about the unusual number of human transports leaving the station that week. Morrison had smiled and said something about humans needing to visit family. Now those words seemed different, more meaningful. The shuttle carrying Morrison and the last humans from Kepler Prime joined a massive convoy of human ships moving toward the edge of known space. Long-range sensors tracked the convoy until it reached the outer rim, then the ships simply vanished. No jump signatures, no warp trails, nothing. They were just gone. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On New Tokyo, human families had packed their belongings and left their homes in perfect condition. The houses were clean, the gardens were watered, and the bills were all paid up to date. On Mining Station Delta 7, human workers had finished their shifts, submitted their final reports, and departed on transport ships that arrived exactly on schedule. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from 12 different species gathered in the Great Chamber on Nexus, stationed to discuss what they were calling the human event. Nobody understood what had happened or why it had happened so quickly and quietly. Council member Thesis of the Korthic Empire was the first to speak. He stood at his podium, his scaled face showing the arrogance that made him famous throughout the galaxy. Thesis had never liked humans and made no secret of his feelings. "This is clearly an act of cowardice," Thesis announced to the assembled delegates. The humans finally realized they could not compete with superior civilizations. They have fled like the primitive species they always were. Ambassador Crix disagreed. He had worked with humans for many years and found them to be clever and resourceful. "The humans I know are not cowards. This withdrawal seems planned and organized. Perhaps they have reasons we do not understand." What reasons could they possibly have? Thesis replied with a dismissive gesture. They contributed little to galactic civilization except crude technologies and violent entertainment. We are better off without them. The debate continued for hours, but nobody had real answers. The humans had simply vanished, leaving behind empty cities and abandoned space stations. Most strange of all, they had left everything working. Power plants still generated electricity. Automated systems still maintained the empty buildings, and defensive systems still protected the vacant colonies. The only clue came in the form of a message. broadcast simultaneously from every human facility across the galaxy. The message was simple and direct, spoken in calm voices by different humans from different locations. We hereby withdraw from galactic affairs. Do not follow. That was all. No explanation, no demands, no threats. Just a polite request to be left alone. In the days following the broadcast, Council investigation teams visited abandoned human territories. They found cities that looked like their inhabitants had simply walked away. Restaurants had clean dishes, stacked in the kitchens. Libraries had books neatly arranged on the shelves. Schools had lesson plans written on whiteboards for classes that would never happen. The investigators found no signs of struggle, no evidence of forced evacuation, no indication that anything bad had happened. The humans had simply decided to leave, and they had done it with remarkable efficiency and organization. Admiral Lisa Hayes had been the human ambassador to the Galactic Council for over 10 years. She was respected by many species and had negotiated dozens of important treaties. Her final diplomatic message arrived just hours before the human exodus began. The message contained coordinates pointing to the outer rim of the galaxy, far beyond any known colonies or trade routes. Below the coordinates was a single sentence that puzzled everyone who read it. You will understand someday why we had to go. Some council members wanted to send exploration fleets to the coordinates, but others argued against it. The humans had asked to be left alone, and following them might be seen as an act of aggression. The debate went on for weeks while the empty human territories sat unguarded and unclaimed. Eventually, practical concerns won the argument. The human colonies were valuable, with good farmland, mineral resources, and strategic locations along major trade routes. The humans were gone and showed no signs of returning. Someone had to manage these territories, and the council members who had the strongest fleets and the most political influence saw an opportunity. The vote was unanimous. The council declared all human territories to be abandoned assets available for claim by any council member in good standing. Within days, Korthek warships were moving toward the richest human colonies. The Zalani Federation claimed the strategic space stations. Other species divided up the remaining settlements and outposts. Nizes gave a speech celebrating the council's decision. Today we correct a historical mistake, he announced. These territories will finally be managed by civilizations that understand their true value. The humans were never worthy of such rich worlds. But even as the council fleets took control of human space, some members felt uneasy about the situation. The humans had built impressive cities and developed interesting technologies. Their departure seemed too organized, too planned to be simple. Cowardice. Ambassador Crix stood in his new office on what used to be the human colony of New Earth. The human governor had left the office exactly as it was, complete with family photos on the desk and coffee still warm in the cup. Looking out the window at the empty streets below, Crix wondered if the council had made the right choice. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the galactic rim, the humans were out there. They had left without violence, without threats, without any hint of their intentions. For a species that supposedly ran away in fear, they had shown remarkable calm and confidence. Time would tell whether the council's decision to claim human territories was wise or foolish. But for now, the great silence continued, and humanity remained hidden in the vast darkness of unexplored space. Dr. Elena Rodriguez pressed her face against the observation window and watched another Korthik fleet claim what used to be human space. The asteroid field around her looked empty and dead, but hidden inside the largest rock was a sophisticated monitoring station that the council would never find. Helena had volunteered to stay behind when the great exodus began. She was one of 3,000 humans who chose to remain in council space while their families and friends traveled to the new colonies beyond the galactic rim. Her job was simple but dangerous. Watch everything the Council did and report back. To the human leadership, the hidden base was carved deep inside the asteroid, with living quarters for 50 people and enough supplies to last 5 years. Advanced cloaking technology made the asteroid look like ordinary space rock to any sensors. The humans had built dozens of these secret bases throughout their former territory before the Exodus began. Lieutenant Ben Carter sat at the main sensor array, tracking Council ship movements across 12 star systems. His screens showed Korthic warships landing on New Boston, the human agricultural world that had fed millions of people. The aliens were converting the human farms into mining operations, tearing up the soil to reach the mineral deposits underneath. "They are moving faster than we expected," Ben reported to Elena. "The Korthic have taken 3 colonies already this week. They are not even trying to understand how the human systems work. They just destroy everything and rebuild it their way." Elena nodded as she reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Council species had divided up human space like hungry animals fighting over meat. The Korthic Empire wanted the mineral-rich worlds. The Zelani Federation claimed the research stations and technology centers. The smaller Council members got the leftover settlements and outposts. None of them seemed to care about preserving what the humans had built. The beautiful cities were being torn down to make room for alien architecture. The carefully designed ecosystems were being replaced with whatever crops or industries the new owners preferred. Centuries of human work and planning were being erased as if they had never existed. Commander Alex Turner handled communications with the sleeper agents, humans who had stayed behind in Council space by pretending to be citizens of other species. Some had alien friends who helped them get fake identity papers. Others used advanced medical procedures to change their appearance enough to pass as members of different species. The sleeper agents worked in Council government offices, military bases, and research facilities. They sent regular reports about Council plans and activities through hidden communication networks. Alex collected all these reports and organized them into detailed intelligence summaries. "The news is getting worse," Alex told Elena during their daily briefing. "Council media outlets are calling humans cowards and failures across their networks. Some news programs are saying we were never as advanced as we claimed to be. They think our technology was stolen from other species." Elena felt angry, but tried not to show it. The humans had always been generous with their discoveries, sharing new technologies freely with Council members. Human scientists had helped solve medical problems, food shortages, and energy crises for dozens of alien species. Now those same species were claiming humans had contributed nothing valuable to galactic civilization. Through quantum encrypted communications, Elena maintained contact with Director Sam Phillips, who was leading the main human Exodus fleet in dark space. The messages took days to travel the enormous distances, but they were completely secure from Council detection. Sam's latest report brought good news. The humans had successfully established 7 major colonies in previously unexplored star systems. The new worlds were rich in rare minerals and had perfect conditions for human life. More importantly, they were completely hidden from Council sensors and would remain secret unless someone knew exactly where to look. The human refugees were not just surviving in their new homes, they were thriving. Free from Council regulations and restrictions, human engineers and scientists were developing new technologies at an incredible pace. Projects that would have taken decades under Council oversight were being completed in months. Alana's team documented everything they observed about Council behavior in former human space. They recorded which species took which territories, how the aliens treated human-built infrastructure, and what technologies they tried to copy or reverse engineer. Every act of disrespect, every violation of diplomatic agreements, every careless destruction of human achievements was carefully noted and filed. The watching humans also kept track of which alien species had treated the human departure with dignity and respect. The Altarians had publicly mourned humanity's withdrawal and refused to claim any human territories. The peaceful Deltans had offered to protect human archaeological sites from looters and treasure hunters. These good aliens were rare, but Elena made sure their names were recorded alongside the detailed reports of species that had celebrated humanity's departure. When the time came for humans to decide which aliens deserved friendship and which deserved something else, these records would be very important. Captain Troy Williams commanded another hidden observation post in the abandoned Sol system, Earth's original home. His base was built inside one of Jupiter's moons, completely invisible to long-range sensors. From there, he watched Council exploration teams examine the empty cities of Earth and the abandoned space stations throughout the solar system. The aliens were particularly interested in human computer systems and manufacturing facilities. They brought their best scientists and engineers to study human technology, hoping to understand how such a primitive species had achieved such impressive results. What they found confused and frustrated them. Human technology was elegant and efficient, but it was also designed in ways that alien minds found difficult to understand. The computers used programming languages that seemed simple, but contained layers of complexity that took alien analysts months to decode. The manufacturing systems could produce incredibly advanced materials using processes that appeared almost magical to Council scientists. Remember, Elena reminded her team during their nightly briefing, we are not here for revenge. We are here to understand who our real friends were and who never deserved our partnership in the first place. But privately, Elena wondered if the Council truly understood what they had lost when humanity departed. The aliens seemed to think they had gained valuable territory and resources. They did not realize they had also lost access to the most innovative and adaptable species in the galaxy. More importantly, Elena wondered if the Council would realize their mistake before it was too late. The humans hiding in dark space were not sitting idle. They were building something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. And someday, when they were ready, they would return to show the Council exactly what they had given up. The watching humans remained patient and silent, recording everything and waiting for the right moment to reveal what they had learned. They, Council, thought humanity had disappeared forever, but Elena knew better. The humans were still there, still watching, still planning. And when they finally revealed themselves again, the galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Xylix stared at his computer screen in complete shock. The Zelani scientist had been working in the former human research facility on Tau Ceti for 3 months, trying to understand the advanced equipment the humans had left behind. What? He discovered that morning would change everything the Council thought they knew about humanity's disappearance. The quantum resonance detector had been running automatically since the Zelani forces took over the station. It was designed to monitor energy patterns across vast distances of space, something the humans had used to study distant stars and galaxies. Xylix had ignored the device for weeks because its readings seemed random and meaningless. But today, the patterns were different. The energy signatures coming from beyond the galactic rim were not random at all. They were organized, controlled, and incredibly powerful. More disturbing still, they were clearly artificial. Someone was building something massive out there in the dark space where humanity had vanished. Xylix ran the calculations again, hoping he had made a mistake. The numbers did not change. The quantum resonance patterns showed construction activity on a scale that dwarfed anything the Galactic Council had ever attempted. Multiple star systems were being modified simultaneously. Entire planets were being moved into new orbits. Resources were being extracted and processed at rates that seemed impossible. "This cannot be right," Silex whispered to himself as he checked the detector calibration for the 5th time. But the machine was working perfectly. The signals were real, and they were coming from the direction where the human convoy had disappeared 6 months earlier. Captain Troy Williams watched from his hidden observation bunker on Europa as council ships swarmed around the research station. Elena's team had been waiting for this moment since the exodus began. They knew that eventually some alien scientist would notice the quantum signatures from humanity's true activities in dark space. The discovery that Elena's people had been waiting for had finally happened. The council had detected clear evidence that humanity had not fled in defeat or fear. Instead, they had withdrawn to begin the largest construction project in galactic history. The energy readings were impossible to hide and equally impossible to ignore. Within hours of Xylex's discovery, emergency messages were flying between council worlds. The quantum resonance patterns were being analyzed by the best scientists of every major species. All of them reached the same terrifying conclusion. Humanity had been busy in their exile, and what they were building was beyond anything the council could understand. The energy signatures told a story that made council leaders lose sleep. Humanity had not just found new worlds to live on. They had begun reshaping entire solar systems to suit their needs. The quantum patterns showed massive engineering projects that violated everything the council thought they knew about physics and technology. Ambassador Crix received the emergency briefing at his office on New Earth, the former human colony he now administered. As he read the scientific reports, his hands began to shake. The humans had been developing technologies that made council science look primitive by comparison. "The implications are deeply concerning," Crix told the emergency council session. That met via hologram later that day. "If these readings are accurate, humanity has achieved technological advancement that exceeds our current understanding of what is possible." The quantum resonance patterns suggested that humans were not just building cities or space stations. They were constructing artificial planets, harvesting energy directly from stars, and moving matter through space using methods that council physicists could not explain. The scale of activity was so vast that it created detectable distortions. In the fabric of space-time itself, Dr. Kelly Parker monitored the emergency. Council discussions from the hidden Luna base in Earth's abandoned solar system. She had been the lead physicist on the Human Exodus project and understood exactly what the aliens were detecting. The quantum signatures were just the byproducts of normal human construction activity, magnified by the incredible freedom humanity now enjoyed. For centuries, the Galactic Council had limited human expansion through bureaucratic restrictions, technology sharing agreements, and territorial boundaries. They claimed these measures were necessary for galactic stability, but humans had always suspected the real reason. The established alien powers were afraid of human innovation and adaptability. Every human research project had required council approval. Every new technology had to be shared with alien oversight committees. Every expansion into new territory needed permits and environmental studies that took decades to complete. The humans had been forced to work at the pace of the slowest and most conservative council members. Now, freed from those artificial limitations, humanity was advancing at their natural rate. The quantum signatures detected by the Zelani sensors represented just 6 months of unrestricted human development. What the council was seeing as impossible technology was simply what humans could accomplish when nobody was holding them back. The council analysis teams were beginning to understand the scope of what humanity had achieved. The energy readings suggested that humans had not just colonized new worlds, they had begun terraforming entire star systems. They were building structures that spanned multiple planets. They were harvesting resources on a scale that made the entire council economy look small and inefficient. More frightening still was the rate of acceleration. The quantum patterns showed that human activity was increasing exponentially. Whatever they were building out there was getting bigger and more sophisticated every week. The humans were not just surviving in exile. They were thriving beyond anything they had achieved while under council oversight. The Isis of the Korthic Empire called for immediate military action. "We must send exploration fleets to investigate these signals," he demanded during the emergency session. "If the humans are developing weapons or planning some kind of attack, we need to know immediately." But other council members were more cautious. The humans had specifically asked to be left alone when they departed. Following them into dark space could be seen as an act of aggression. More importantly, if the quantum readings were accurate, humanity now possessed technology that might make them very dangerous enemies. Ambassador Crix found himself thinking about Admiral Lisa Hayes and her final message. She had said the Council would understand someday why humanity had to leave. Looking at the quantum resonance patterns on his screen, Crix was beginning to understand what she meant. The humans had not fled because they were weak or afraid. They had withdrawn because they realized the Council would never allow them to reach their full potential. The bureaucratic restrictions and territorial limits were not protecting galactic stability. They were preventing humanity from becoming what they were naturally capable of becoming. As panic spread through council chambers, one question echoed repeatedly through every discussion. What exactly had humanity built out there in the darkness beyond the rim? The quantum signature suggested construction projects that exceeded the combined capabilities of all council species working together. But humans were supposed to be primitive and backward compared to the established galactic civilizations. Discovery changed everything the council thought they knew about humanity. The species they had dismissed as crude and violent had somehow developed technology that made council science look like children playing with toys. The aliens who had celebrated humanity's departure were beginning to realize they might have made a terrible mistake not far beyond the galactic rim. In star systems that council maps did not even show, humanity continued their great work. Free from alien oversight and artificial limitations, they were finally becoming what they had always been capable of becoming. And someday soon, they would return to show the galaxy exactly what they had built in the darkness. The first sign appeared on Council long-range sensors at exactly noon, Galactic Standard Time. A gravitational anomaly was detected at the edge of what used to be human space, moving at speeds that should have been impossible for objects of that size. The sensor operators thought their equipment was malfunctioning until similar readings appeared on stations across 12 different star systems. Admiral Greg Sullivan stood on the bridge of the CNS, determination, and watched the stars bend around his ship as the quantum cloak disengaged. He had spent 6 months in dark space, overseeing the construction of humanity's new fleet, and now it was time to return home. Around him, 300 vessels unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen dropped their stealth fields simultaneously. The ships that materialized from nothing appeared to be made of liquid metal that shifted and flowed like water while maintaining perfect structural integrity. Their hulls bent light around them, creating rainbow patterns that hurt alien eyes to look at directly. The engines left trails of controlled spatial distortion that made nearby space shimmer like heat waves. Council emergency broadcasts flooded the communication channels as alien commanders tried to understand what they were seeing. The human ships had appeared without warning in the heart of Council-controlled territory. No jump signatures had been detected, no warp trails had been recorded. The vessels had simply materialized as if they had always been there. This is Admiral Sullivan of the Colonial Navy to all Council forces in former human territories. His transmission reached every ship and station in the region. You have 30 minutes to evacuate stolen human property before we reclaim it. The message was broadcast on all frequencies in every major galactic language. Sullivan's voice was calm and professional, as if he were discussing weather conditions, rather than delivering an ultimatum to the most powerful military forces in known space. But there was something in his tone that made even veteran alien commanders feel nervous. President Janet Foster appeared on screens throughout Council space, as her image was transmitted from the flagship CNS Persistence. She looked exactly as the aliens remembered her from diplomatic meetings years earlier, but something had changed. Her eyes held a confidence that had not been there before, and her smile suggested she knew secrets that others could only guess. "At members of the Galactic Council," Foster began, her voice carrying clearly across the quantum transmission, "humanity hereby reclaims all territories and assets illegally seized during our absence. We are prepared to discuss terms for future relations with those species who treated our departure with respect." The Council's emergency session was called within minutes. Representatives from every major species gathered via hologram to discuss this unprecedented situation. The humans had returned, but they were clearly not the same species that had departed 6 months earlier. Vases of the Korthic Empire was the first to respond, his scaled face twisted with rage and disbelief. "How dare you make demands of the Galactic Council? You abandoned these territories voluntarily. We claimed them legally according to established interstellar law." Foster's reply came immediately, her voice still calm, but carrying an edge that made every council member listening feel uncomfortable. "We built what we always could have built, had we not been constrained by your laws, your oversight, and your fear. 6 months of human innovation, unimpeded by artificial limitations, has produced what you see before you." As she spoke, more human ships continued to decloak throughout former human space. The vessels appeared in perfect formation around every major planet, space station, and strategic position. It was clear that the humans had been planning this return for months and knew exactly where every council asset was located. Captain Dan Martinez commanded the advanced destroyer CNS Retribution, one of 50 identical ships that had surrounded the Korvik fleet at New Boston. His vessel was only 200 meters long, tiny compared to the massive alien battleships, but the quantum readings it generated made Council sensors scream warnings about unknown energy sources. "All Council vessels have 5 minutes remaining," Sullivan announced in his second transmission. "After that, we will consider any presence in human space as hostile action requiring immediate response." The Korthic admiral commanding the occupation fleet at New Boston made the mistake of taking Sullivan's warning as a bluff. His ships outnumbered the human vessels 3-1, and each Korthak battleship was 5 times larger than the largest human destroyer. The alien commander ordered his fleet to attack positions and prepared to show these upstart humans who really controlled this sector of space. What happened next would be studied by military academies across the galaxy for generations. The human ships simply vanished from sensor screens for exactly 3 seconds. When they reappeared, they had somehow moved through the Korthic formation without triggering any defensive systems. Every alien vessel found itself surrounded by human ships that had appeared from nowhere. "Last chance," Captain Martinez transmitted to the Korthic admiral. "Withdraw immediately or face the consequences of your illegal occupation." The alien commander's response was to order his entire fleet to open fire. Every weapon system on 60 Korthak warships activated simultaneously, filling space with energy beams, missile swarms, and particle cannon fire. The concentrated firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. None of it touched the human ships. The weapons passed through the human vessels as if they were ghosts, or the humans existed in a slightly different dimension where physical attacks could not reach them. Meanwhile, the human return fire was devastatingly precise. The Korthik flagship, previously considered the most powerful warship in the galaxy, found itself targeted by beams of energy that seemed to rewrite the fundamental laws of physics. The massive vessel's hull did not explode or melt. Instead, sections of it simply ceased to exist in normal spacetime, leaving perfectly smooth edges where armor plating and internal systems had been moments before. Within 17 minutes, the entire Korthok occupation fleet had been systematically disabled. Not destroyed, but rendered completely helpless. Alien crews found themselves floating in escape pods, while their mighty warships became hollow shells of twisted metal. Not a single human vessel had taken any damage. Similar scenes played out across former human territory. Council fleets that had seemed invincible just hours earlier were reduced to scrap metal by human weapons that operated on principles alien science could not understand. The message spread across the galaxy faster than light. Humanity had returned, and they were no longer the constrained species the Council remembered. "Terms are non-negotiable," President Foster announced in her final transmission of the day. "You may maintain diplomatic relations and trade agreements with humanity, but only as equals. The days of restricting human expansion and development are over permanently." The quantum signatures that had puzzled Council scientists for weeks now made perfect sense. Humanity had not just built new colonies in dark space. They had constructed an entire civilization based on technologies that made Council science look primitive. The ships now reclaiming human territory were just the smallest examples of what humans had accomplished when freed from alien oversight. Admiral Sullivan looked out at the stars that had once again become human space and smiled. Galaxy was about to learn what humanity was truly capable when nobody was holding them back. The Battle of Kepler Prime lasted exactly 17 minutes from the first shot to the final surrender. What the Council had expected to be humanity's defeat became the moment that changed. Galactic civilization forever. Admiral Rick Stevens coordinated. Human forces from the CNS Liberation as Council fleets converged on the diplomatic station, where humanity had once maintained peaceful relations with alien species. The Korthek Empire had assembled the largest battle fleet in their history, supported by warships from 6 other Council species. They came to Kepler Prime to crush human arrogance once and for all. The alien commanders were confident in their superior numbers and proven weapons. The combined Council fleet included over 400 warships, each one tested in countless battles across the galaxy. Their crews had decades of combat experience against rebels, pirates, and rival civilizations. They had never lost a major engagement. Stevens watched the approaching enemy fleet with professional calm. His force numbered only 60 ships, but each vessel represented the pinnacle of human technological achievement. 6 months of unrestricted development in dark space had produced weapons and defenses that operated on principles the Council could not comprehend. The Korthek Admiral opened communications first, his scaled face filled with the arrogance that had made his species famous throughout known space. "Surrender immediately, and we may allow some of your people to live as slaves. Continue this foolish resistance, and we will erase humanity from galactic history." Stevens replied with a smile that never reached his eyes. "You had your chance to. Treat us as equals. Now you will learn what happens when you steal from the wrong species." The battle began when Council forces opened fire with every weapon they possessed. Energy beams, missile swarms, particle cannons, and plasma torpedoes filled the space around Kepler Prime with enough destructive power to crack a planet's crust. The coordinated attack represented the combined military might of 7 different civilizations. None of it touched the human ships. The vessels moved through the weapon fire like ghosts, their hulls bending space around them to deflect attacks into harmless directions. Missiles that should have destroyed entire city blocks simply passed through human shields as if they were traveling through empty space. The human response was surgical in its precision. Captain Linda Ross, commanding the CNS Vindication, targeted the Korthek flagship with weapons that seemed to rewrite reality itself. The massive alien battleship found itself surrounded by 3 human cruisers that had appeared from folded space without warning. Ross offered the Korthik admiral one final chance to surrender. When he refused and ordered his remaining weapons to fire, she activated a device that made his ship simply cease to exist in normal spacetime. The hull, the engines, the weapon systems, everything except the crew quarters vanished as if it had never been built. The alien crew found themselves floating in emergency pods, where their mighty flagship had been moments before. They were unharmed, but completely helpless, watching in shock as their most powerful warship became empty space filled with rescue capsules. Similar fates befell Council vessels throughout the battle zone. Human weapons did not destroy enemy ships in the traditional sense. Instead, they removed selected components from reality, leaving crews alive, but stranded in escape pods floating where their vessels used to be. It was a demonstration of power that went beyond simple military victory. Within 17 minutes, the pride of 7 civilizations had been reduced to debris fields and rescue operations. Not a single human ship had taken damage. Not one human crew member had been injured. The most one-sided battle in galactic history was over before most alien commanders understood what was happening. President Foster addressed the galaxy from the bridge of the CNS Persistence as news of the battle spread across every world and station in Council space. Her image appeared on screens in alien homes, government buildings, and military headquarters from the core worlds to the outer rim territories. We left in silence because we realized the truth, Foster began, her voice carrying clearly across. Quantum transmissions that reached billions of alien citizens. You were never our partners. You were our wardens, keeping us contained while you benefited from our innovations. The terms humanity offered were delivered with the same calm professionalism that had marked their return. Council species could maintain diplomatic relations and trade agreements with the new human government, but only as equals. The days of restricting human expansion through bureaucratic oversight were finished permanently. Foster made it clear that humanity remembered everything that had happened during their absence. Detailed records had been kept of which species had respected human property and which had celebrated their departure. Those records would determine the future of galactic relations. Dr. Helena Rodriguez finally emerged from her hidden observation post and found herself appointed as humanity's new ambassador to remaining Council affairs. Her detailed documentation of Council behavior during the Exodus would serve as the foundation for all future diplomatic decisions. The peaceful Altarians, who had refused to claim human territories and had publicly mourned humanity's departure, discovered themselves welcomed as genuine allies with access to advanced human technologies. Their homeworld received the first shipments of quantum healing devices and gravity manipulation systems. Other species faced very different treatment. The Korthik Empire and those who had most aggressively seized human property found that humanity's definition of equal treatment could be remarkably cold. Trade agreements were offered on terms that strongly favored human interests. Territorial disputes were settled in ways that left alien governments with much smaller borders than they had enjoyed before. The Zelani Federation, which had claimed human research stations and tried to reverse engineer human technology, received polite but distant diplomatic recognition. They were allowed to maintain their existing territories, but found themselves excluded from the most beneficial trade opportunities and technological exchanges. The galaxy operated under new rules now. The old Galactic Council building on Nexus Station was converted into a museum documenting the failures of hierarchical interstellar government. In its place, humanity established the Terran Accords, agreements that emphasized genuine equality and mutual benefit rather than the control systems favored by traditional alien powers. Some species adapted quickly to the new reality, the scientific. Communities of several civilizations eagerly sought partnerships with human researchers, hoping to understand technologies that seemed to violate basic physical laws. These collaborations produced advances in medicine, energy production, and space travel that benefited everyone involved. Others struggled to accept that the species they had considered primitive now controlled the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Several minor powers attempted to form anti-human alliances, but these efforts collapsed when potential members realized the futility of opposing technology they could not understand. 5 years after humanity's return, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood in the former council chambers and guided tours of alien diplomats through exhibits explaining the old system of galactic governance. The displays showed how artificial restrictions and bureaucratic oversight had prevented not just humans, but many other species from reaching their true potential. The council's greatest error, Elena would explain to visitors examining historical documents and recorded speeches, was believing that silence meant surrender. Sometimes the most dangerous humans are the ones you cannot see, the ones who are watching, learning, and building something better while you celebrate their absence. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo through history for generations. Humanity had not conquered known space through military might or political manipulation. They had simply refused to accept limitations that others tried to impose, and had demonstrated what was possible when innovation was allowed to flourish without artificial constraints. In the vast colonies beyond the galactic rim, human civilization continued to expand and evolve at the natural pace their species had always been capable of maintaining. They carried forward the most important lesson from their quiet departure. Sometimes you have to leave the party to remind everyone why they invited you in the first place.